Hi scholars, I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. This week for math we are going to focus on reviewing topics that we've already learned about so far this year. So for today we are going to focus on reviewing pictographs. And pictographs are a type of graph that uses pictures or symbols to represent data on a graph. So you can see the two examples here. It tells us in the key that a smiley face equals 10 people, and then we can count how many people ordered pizza for lunch, or corn dogs, or burgers, spaghetti. And then same with this one. This graph is called miles traveled over summer break, and each car equals 100 miles. So we can see who traveled the most over summer break using the pictograph. There's lots of different types of graphs. There are tally charts that we can use to help us see information and measure data. There's bar graphs, picture graphs or pictographs like we just talked about, pie charts. There's also line graphs. And then you can see some different examples of graphs here. So graphs are really helpful when you want to show information, show data, because you can see it and you can visually compare who has the most, who has the least. You can see trends over time, which week had the most sales. It's a good way to organize your information and be able to show it in a way that's easy to read. So let's watch a video that tells us a little bit more about pictographs, since that's the type of graph we are going to focus on today.
We have here is a picture graph. And the reason why it's called a picture graph is because it uses pictures to give us information. In this case, it uses the picture of a mouse. And it tells us that one of these little mouse pictures means one mouse. It equals one mouse. So what is this picture graph telling us? Well, the title says Mice on Farm. So this tells us how many mice are in the different places in a farm. And you could see here the different places where we might find mice. We could find mice in the house, in the barn, in the pasture, or the corral. And then these, I guess you could say, these stacks of these mouse pictures tell us how many mice there are in each of those places. So, for example, in the house, we see, well, this they tell us that's one mouse. It says 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, or 4 mice. 4 mice in the house. That's 4 right over there. Could write that over there. 4 mice in the house. How many in the barn? Well, same idea. 1, 2, let me just in different color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 mice in the barn. So there's 6 mice in the barn. Let me just write that down. So 6 mice in the barn. What about the pasture? Well, we see that there's 3 mice there. That's because each of these pictures is one mouse. The person who made the picture graph could have made each of those pictures a different number of mice, but here each one is one mouse. So there's 3 in the pasture, 3 in the pasture. And then finally, let me move over a little bit. And then finally, there are 2 in the corral. 2 in the corral. So if someone asked you how many total mice are there on this farm, well, you would add all of these up. You would say 4 plus 6 is 10, plus 3 is 13, plus 2 is 15. 15 total mice on the farm. So once again, picture graph. Just a way to show data, to show information. This tells us how many mice are in each part of the farm. Someone said, how many mice in the barn? You say, okay, well, there's 6 mice. If someone says, how many mice are in the pasture and the corral combined? Well, that's going to be the 3 in the pasture plus the 2 in the corral, or 5. They said, how many mice in the whole farm? And if these are all the places where the mice could be, well, it's going to be the 4 plus 6 plus 3 plus 2, or 15. And we're done.
So for today's classwork, you'll see that we have a picture graph here, and they're called picture graphs or pictographs. Either one, it means the same thing. And you can see that our picture graph this time is horizontal. So sometimes graphs will go horizontally, sometimes they'll go vertically, so they'll go up and down this way. But this one is going horizontally. So remember, first things first, we always put our first name, last name, and the date. And then we can zoom in to our classwork. Just click one time and read the directions. It says, children in a school wrote down weather symbols for each day in March. So they were graphing the weather in March. So you'll see on this side of our graph, it says sunny, cloudy, rainy, snowy, and stormy. These were all the days in March that were sunny, all the days that were cloudy, all the days that were rainy, and so on. And there's no key, so it doesn't tell us what each of these symbols means. So we can assume that each one counts as one day of it being sunny, one day of it being cloudy. Now it's going to be your job to answer the questions that are about the graph. So this one says, which weather was the most common? Which one has the most? And then you'd write your answer here. Which weather was the least common? Which one has the least amount out of all of them? And notice how a pictograph makes it really easy to tell. You can just see, you don't even need to count, you can just see which one goes all the way to the end, which one is closer to this end, it doesn't have as much. Number 3 says, how many days was it snowy? This is a typo, it should say it. But it says, how many days was it snowy? So you have to go to your graph, find the bar that says snowy, and then count the snowy days. Now, number 7, I put a lightning bolt here because number 7 is going to be the most tricky one. So let's read over this one. It says, Joel takes his dog for a walk in the morning when it is not wet, snowy, or stormy. How many days in March would he walk his dog? So you have to go up to your graph and think about, okay, wet means there's probably some sort of rain. So he didn't take his dog for a walk on the rainy days. Snowy or stormy. Cloudy doesn't mean that it's wet, snowy, or stormy though, because it's just clouds. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's rain. If there were rain drops coming down, then it would be counted as a rainy day. So this question's trying to trick you. Don't get tricked. Cloudy doesn't count as a wet, snowy, or stormy day. All right, scholars, that's it for our math for today. I hope you have fun with it, and don't forget to hit submit once you're done. All right, bye, scholars.